Today, we are talking about a camera that was released back in 2021, the Sony FX3. This camera is actually filming me right now, but is it still worth buying in 2024? The Sony FX3 is a compact full-frame cinema camera that is designed for video production and cinematography. It has a 10.2 megapixel sensor, which makes it great in low light. It also shoots 4K up to 120 frames per second. It has a vari-angle flip touch LCD screen, and it has dual SD card slots. Well, it started raining on me, so now we are inside of my car. But let's talk about a few reasons why you absolutely should buy the Sony FX3 in 2024, and it's probably still going to be a very viable camera for years and years to come. Number one still is that compact nature of this camera versus some of the other competitors out there like, Blackmagic. Those things are still a little bit big. Being able to take your entire kit in one small bag is a game changer for most solo filmmakers out there. Now, another reason is that top handle. The top handle is something that I don't use all the time, but the fact that it is there and I do have to use it from time to time, it comes in clutch a lot of the times. So it's one of those things that it's like you don't need, but when you do need it, it's super valuable to have it built into your camera. Another reason, the sensor and the quality of video coming out of this thing is just incredible. Had the FX30, I still have the A7IV. Those images are great, don't get me wrong, but there's something special about the image that comes out of this FX3 and the A7S3 that it's just really nice. Now, there have been a bunch of new cameras that have been released since the release of the Sony FX30. And the competition is really what brings us down and would make you not want to buy this camera. The Sony A7IV, the Sony FX30, even the Sony ZV-E1 was released and has a lot of the same features for less cost. So how does the Sony FX3 compare to some of the competitors on the market? Panasonic or Lumix, they have their S5 II and their S5 IIX that's out. I've never used them personally, but I used the original S5 and I love that camera. I felt like the only thing it was missing was a solid autofocus system to really take over the market. Now, I have heard that their new autofocus system, they included the phase detect. From what I've heard and what I've seen, it looks like it is doing a very good job. However, it does have some of those wonky things to be expected when a camera first introduces an autofocus system to their camera lineup. Also, you have to deal with the 4K 60 cropping. That can be a little bit annoying because you have to change out lenses if you really want to have the wide shots that you're trying to get. Same with the Sony A7IV. One of the biggest problems with that is that it crops in 4K 60. Now, if that's not a big deal to you, then A7IV is probably a really good option. I love my Sony A7IV, and the video quality coming out of that thing is incredible. I love it. It has overheated on me before. Just having that little bit of doubt is definitely scary when you're going onto sets or you're going onto a long shoot day and you're just not sure. Blackmagic, they have released full frame cinema cameras just recently. Incredible image, amazing video features, no autofocus system. So if you need autofocus, those are a deal breaker. The Sony FX30 is a crop sensor camera, great camera, basically all of the same features as the Sony FX3 except with a Super 35 sensor. Now, having owned the FX30 and using it, I can say without a doubt that I still prefer the image that's coming out of the Sony FX3 versus the FX30. Not that it was bad, but I personally prefer it. Also, you have a lot less flexibility in low light, and depending on what kind of things you're shooting, that could be a deal breaker as well. Finally, that leaves me with the Sony ZV-E1. Now, I have not used this camera in person yet, so I have no idea. I'm completely speaking off of videos and everything that I've seen online. The biggest problem with that camera seems to be the overheating, or the threat of overheating. So if you're doing anything that's in production or if you're doing anything that requires long takes, there might be a lingering sort of doubt that it could overheat. There is no dual SD card slots for simultaneous recording if you want to back up. The body of it has a little bit less customization than something like the FX3. And I think the Sony ZV-E1 is more geared towards content creators and maybe somebody who does do just the occasional professional job. Now, none of these things that I've said about any of these other cameras are deal breakers for everybody. As a matter of fact, a lot of the times it wasn't a deal breaker for me. I was able to find ways to get the job done that I wanted to get done. However, I have been wanting the Sony FX3 for a long time, and did I need it? No, I did not need it, but do I regret having it? Absolutely not. I don't regret having this camera at all. It's my favorite camera of all time, and honestly, I don't see myself buying a new camera for years to come still. So who is the Sony FX3 for? Who should buy this? Who would it be worth it to? Somebody like myself, who is a full-time video content producer, full-time video producer. I'm a videographer. I'm not necessarily a cinematographer. I do work for restaurants. I do real estate. I do a bunch of like funny sketch comedy, some podcast shoots. Having the Sony FX3 makes so much sense for somebody like me who needs a daily driver, who is just always going to be there, always going to be prepared, and no matter what situation I'm thrown into, I am covered with the Sony FX3. Someone who is a content creator, who is maybe part-time, or maybe somebody who just doesn't want to splurge and spend the $3,800, $3,900 that it's going to cost to buy the Sony FX3. I think any of those options I talked about earlier are a very good option. Like, if it were me, and I was just a content creator and somebody who was shooting the occasional promo video here and there, I'd probably go for either the Sony A7IV or the Sony ZV-E1. So to conclude this video, is the Sony FX3 still worth buying in 2024? Resounding 100% yes, it is absolutely worth it. But worth it to who is what remains to be seen. And that's something that only you can figure out whether or not it's worth it to buy. Will it be a viable option moving for years to come? Absolutely it will be. You have to look at what you need and what things are a deal breaker for you specifically, and figure out what camera is right for you. Now, if you enjoyed this video or you have any other topics that you would like to see me cover, please like and subscribe, comment down below, and I will see you in the next video.